Hey everyone, relax. This is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson. Hello, and thank you for watching.
Last time I flew back to Byron after
Yeah.
a recording session, the plane that I was on was coming in to land. Oh, thanks, Mike. Mike's just handing me a tissue because he's got a runny nose.
Okay. Do you feel like this is the perfect time to deal with that?
In the middle of the story.
I mean,
Well, I was going to do it before we started
right
recording,
at the start of the
but
story?
Mike said get going. I'll bring him in. So I listened to my producer.
Okay, but it does feel like we just started doing the podcast, and at that point, you've like sneezed and blown your nose, like a thing that could have happened, like I guess 45 seconds ago, and then we could have just started the podcast without that happening at the start.
So I was flying back into Byron, and as the plane's coming in to land,
Yeah.
so we're about to touch down.
Yep.
We hit really hard, like to the point where it's like crash, and like everyone pops out of their seats, and then the engines go, and we take off again, and everyone's like, oh, there's that kind of like panic talking around, and then you hear this, hey, this is your captain speaking. Clearly that wasn't meant to happen. That's on me. I guess you'd say that. It's a very short runway at Ballina Airport, and slightly misjudged that. So we're just going to go on. We're going to have another go. Dude, like, I've always thought that if I was going to die, like if a plane crashed, I was like, well, if you're 20,000 feet in the air in the plane, well, it's probably not a bad way to go because you'll lose consciousness. But I never considered like crashing into the ground, like, which is when he looped around and did that second attempt, fucking hell, like the sphincters were so tight. Like you could just feel oh my God, spontaneous round of applause. But then he came back on and he's like, oh, so sorry about that. Once again, that one's on me. It's like, yeah, motherfucker. You are the pilot.
None of us were taking any responsibility for that first one. We all thought that was on you. Here's what I will say. I've been in some situations where they had to abort a landing or take off again or whatever else it might be. I also, though, up that way not at the Ballina Airport, or the Gold Coast Airport, but at the little airport that they have for skydiving.
It's out
Tiger or something like that. Yeah, that's right. So I've gone I've gone skydiving there a few times. And so I was.
By the way, like just knowing you, I don't know, like, because you've talked about this before, but like your love of kind of extreme, dangerous, like crazy shit. Like the fact that you have skydived multiple times is so interesting. Like it's so like this. You think you know someone, but then there's just like a little kind of eccentricity, and I think your love of, because you're not like an extreme dude in really any other sense, but there's just an element of you which is like, yeah. I like to snack on danger and dine on death, but just in that sort of one kind of specific area. Like it's every other aspect of your life. I feel like I could anticipate your response, but it's like, hey, Will, do you want to jump out of an airplane? Yeah, sure. That sounds like fun.
There is, though. I mean, you could look at the things that I have indulged in my life, whether they be work or recreational or whatever, and think there was some aspect of wanting a rush or a thrill, or like I've gone towards things that other people might sometimes feel like public speaking is such a huge fear for people in the same way as heights is.
Yeah.
And the thing about skydiving that I constantly talk about is the idea that it's perfect for me because none of it is my responsibility.
Right. Yeah.
Like I never would want to skydive by myself. I have no interest in that. But if like someone else will strap me to them while they're doing it, then I'm absolutely happy to be involved in that. But the idea of like being involved in an adventure sport like mountain climbing or something where I was in charge of my own safety, I'm not up for that.
Yeah, right.
I'm not signing up for the running of the bulls. Or
I remember talking to Jules Lund not long ago, and he's training to skydive solo, and I was like, is that like scary? And he's like, because he's not a CEO, but he runs this business and very stressful.
Because,
And
yeah, it's scary for my employees
Yeah.
who've all got mortgages based on the idea that I'll come into the office on Monday.
but he was saying like he's so stressed out at work. The idea of flinging himself out of a plane is actually the least scary part of his.
I mean, that's
week.
another issue.
Yeah.
He might need to talk to psychologists as well. So when I was going the first time, well, I was sitting next to a guy. We were just waiting and so we were sitting out where the runway was, and it's a short runway, obviously there, but they're only landing light planes, little planes that are going up and down. But while we were sitting there, I was sitting next to an Irish guy who was going to go as well, and he was very nervous about it.
Yeah.
I was not nervous.
Did you ask him if he was nervous? And he said, to be sure, to be sure.
He told me 3 times. That was how I knew. And I said, well, why are you going up there? And he goes, well, I got to find where the end of that rainbow is.
Yeah. He said, I don't think too bad. I got me lucky charms.
You can see it from up here.
I can say that because I'm half Irish.
Yeah, that's right. You can make these jokes.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little bit Irish from Ancestry.com, so I can make some of these jokes, right?
You can make 12.5%.
He took his lucky clover out of his pocket and he kissed the potato he had in his pocket. Prayed to his Lord and Saviour, Bono. And said, cause blimey. No, okay, so he was very nervous.
Yes.
I ran out of things,
Yeah,
sorry.
I noticed.
He said, it's weighing me down, my spice bag. I've got more Irish things. All right. So he said, when I jump out of the plane, do I have to keep my legs really straight on the way down? Like Riverdance.
Yeah,
These are Irish things, people.
Yeah.
Would you say these puns shamrock? I think they do. Come on. Diddly, diddly.
So sitting next to an Irish guy.
Yes. And he is nervous.
Yeah.
He's nervous, Charlie. He's nervous about going up in the plane. And we're sitting there, and a glider comes in. Just one person flying in a glider. And the glider overshoots the runway, but instead of doing what your pilot did and having the foresight to bounce back up and get back up in the air, the glider pilot tries to pull up before the end of the runway and does not pull up before the end of the runway, and then drives through a paddock and into a fence, and then the glider catches on fire.
I shouldn't laugh. Was the
guy's
okay?
fine.
All right, good.
Right? But had to run away from his burning plane. and this Irish guy who was already nervous, who's sitting.
This is before you go up?
Yes.
Amazing.
So literally we're waiting for everyone to get ready so we can go on our plane, and he's telling me he's a bit nervous about it, and in front of our eyes,
This is a plane crash.
glider comes down and then smashes into the fence and catches on fire.
Oh, wow. How does a glider catch on fire? They don't have fuel, do they?
I don't know.
Oh, no, they must have fuel to get up.
I don't know.
All right,
But
yeah.
all I can tell you is it caught on fire. I don't know if the guy just lit it on fire and burned the
Like
evidence.
insurance.
It's like, no, I don't know. It's on fire. But yeah, it definitely caught on fire. And so, but I did say to the guy, statistically, I mean, what are the likelihood that there's going to be 2 plane crashes in a row at the one place? So if anything, it should have made him feel safer, but I don't feel like it did make him feel safer.
I remember when I took Gemma skydiving for her birthday as a birthday treat, and we weren't nervous at all going up until you get to 10,000 feet. That's a jumping height, right? Is it 10 or 14,000?
Well, they do different heights, but
Okay.
14 I think is as high as they'll take you as a tandem. But,
Right.
Yeah, but it would be 10 or 14. Yeah.
So when we got to the jumping height, it wasn't until they opened the door and the wind rushes in, and you're like, oh, this is real. And it seems like a long way down. And Jem went first, and she plummeted so fast. Once she went out, I was like, oh. I was like, and then I started getting nervous. And I remember as the guy was edging me over, not edging me in the modern version, interpretation of that word,
Right.
as the guy was moving me over
He was
towards,
gooning you towards the door.
yeah, he strapped behind me, pushing his loins into me, edging me towards the edge of the door. But I was thinking in my head, like, how can I get out of this? Like, what could I say now
Yeah.
that would, like, that without losing face? Like, could I, like, stomach cramp?
There's
or
nothing.
I
They've
need to
heard
call.
it all.
I need to,
Also,
I need
they've
to call my
heard
mother.
every single thing that would ever be said. They've heard.
But once I was out of the plane
Yeah.
in free fall, I was fine. Like,
Yeah,
it's
well,
kind of.
I mean, it's
What are you
too
going to
late
do
at
now?
that point.
Yeah. But it was funny because when we got because this is back in like I think 2008 or something, and so they had like GoPro strapped to their wrists, and so
Yeah.
they're filming you in this kind of like wide angle lens, and then by the time you land and get changed again, they've already burnt you a DVD of your whole trip, and
Yeah.
it's cut to music like Blink 182 and all this kind of stuff. But so Jim and I go home to watch them. And we had our friend Anthony come around, and I put mine on first, and it's it's all the you getting ready, and then you jumping out, and so they show you jumping out in full speed, and then they replay it in slow mo. And so then we put gems on, and my guy before I'd gone out of the plane said to me, "Hey, when we jump out, just make sure you scream."
Yeah, scream because you got to get all the air
And it's
out.
hard because it's when you've got wind rushing, it's hard
Yes.
to breathe in. But if you
But-
scream, you
But if you
involuntarily
scream, you have to
take a
Yes,
big
That's
breath
right.
in.
That's why they encourage you to do it. It's the
Yeah.
best way to remember to breathe.
Jem's instructor
Yeah.
didn't tell her that,
Yeah,
and so
she forgot to breathe.
And so when she went out, she was like choking. And so we're watching the video, and like in the fast motion, we see Jem, and it's like she's like a fish on land. She's like gasping, trying to breathe. Probably like a horrendous position to be in. But then when they play it in slow motion, it's even funnier. and like the wind rushing in, and like it's like when they do when they test pilots and astronauts and stuff, and they're like their mouths blow open, and you see their teeth and all that kind of stuff in slow motion. Anthony and I were laughing so hard. Like we must have replayed that like DVD, I don't know, maybe 20 times that night, just like crying with laughter on the floor. The next day, the DVD mysteriously disappears. To this day, I'm like, and Gemma claims that she didn't
Of course.
throw it out.
No,
I
no,
didn't do it.
No.
And I'm like, who else? Like,
Yeah.
I wanted to like make a million copies of that. Like, I don't think I knew about YouTube at the time, but oh God, I wish that's to this day, it's the funniest thing I've ever seen.
I'm interested in that like idea of what is the thrill of it. Like, have you seen any of the footage of have you ever seen, like, I know there's one guy in particular I've seen the clip of who just jumped out without the
yeah.
parachute.
I watched that whole thing. There's a whole documentary on it. Yeah.
And like, how do you feel about that? Like,
I mean, it's the people around him that I wonder.
Yeah.
Because sure, like it's his body, his risk, it's a fucking crazy risk, but but it's the facilitators, the enablers, that if something did go wrong, like they're all on the hook for manslaughter or something, or like there must be some legal precedent where it's like you enabled this guy to essentially like kill himself.
Yeah.
Unless he signed it. Can you sign a disclaimer to say, hey, I know what I'm about to do is incredibly dangerous, and if I die, here's indemnity for everyone involved? Like, is that possible?
But I mean, that's what a disclaimer is, isn't it?
Yeah, but then if the family come in and go, that's bullshit.
I mean, yeah, whether it would legally hold up in a court of law, I guess, is that. But I think you could definitely sign it.
I do have a little bit of experience with this. We
Yeah.
made a music video once where we like every time Jeremy and I made a music video, we treated every music video like film school. It's like, oh, we want to use a jib arm, or we want to use this, and so we'd always write something that would enable us to, use a different piece of filmmaking equipment or technique or post production or whatever. And we had never really done stunt work, and we were mates with a bunch of stunties. And one of them told us, "Oh, we have our training facility south of Sydney, this like farmland where we smash cars and we do all kind of flips and all this kind of stuff. So if you can write an idea where we can smash some cars and do some stunts, then we'll do it for you." And so I was like, okay. And so I spoke to our insurer, and they're like, "We're not insuring, we're not insuring that." And so I spoke to the stunties, and I was like, "I can't get insurance. Do you guys have do you have workers comp or something?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, for a job, but this is not that. Like, you guys, you can't cover us from work cover, and our individual insurance won't cover us." And so as the producer, I'm like, okay, so I'm about to kind of greenlight something in which could go horribly wrong, but all the stunt. So I sort of was like, I need to find some kind of cover, and I don't know if this is like legally binding, but I came up with an indemnity form, which is like, stunt performer X agreed to take part in this, take full responsibility for any injuries caused, will not hold the production company responsible. And then the morning of the shoot, the most like weaselly, like I had to go around to each fucking stunt performer and say, "Hi, Charlie, I'm the producer. Would you just mind signing this contract to say that if you get injured,
if you die,
you won't sue
it's
us?"
not on us, please.
And like most of them are like, "Yeah, whatever." Like stuntmen are of that breed,
Yes.
and also like nothing did go wrong. And so what did we do? We did a bunch of like car smashes and car flips, and the probably the most hairy stunt was we had a stunt woman, Jackie Murray, was riding on top of a car, like probably at about 60, 70K an hour, while another car raced beside her, and she did a leap from one roof of one car to the other. So jumped from like moving car, no harnesses, nothing. And we sort of did that take, and I was like, oh God, like she survived. But then all of a sudden he's like, didn't look very good. Let's do it again and faster. And I'm like, I'm happy with this. I'm happy with it. And like, no, let's do it again. And so she did it like 3 or 4 times. And then what I came to realize afterwards is what they were doing was kind of base level. Like they wanted to do more extreme
Of
shit.
course.
They're like, why don't we flip the
Yeah.
car? Why don't we set it on fire?
That's right.
Why don't we do this stuff?
Why don't we set you on fire? Why don't we just set a plane on fire, a glider? They don't have an engine, but let's set it on fire.
But I think there is a point where it's like, so if you're the guy, the skydiving dude, that at some point you're like, well, I mean, I guess I'm sort of just trusting that you know your limitations and capabilities, and if you feel like you can pull this off safely, but there would have been so many sleepless nights, I imagine, from the producers, the director, the cameraman. Imagine being the guy who jumped out with him and it goes wrong. Do you keep filming when you know it's going wrong? Like, just say he doesn't get the parachute on in time, or the belt breaks, or you see the parachute fly off. Do you keep filming?
I mean, they would have been the good conversations to film, you know?
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want the documentary podcast series where you just have the taped conversations where everyone's like, because I assume it's all led by the person who wants to do it, right? So I imagine that he's doing a lot of those. Say it was me who decided I want to jump out of a plane without a parachute, and I want to do it in this way and execute it, and I want to get these people to do it.
Was he also naked? I tend to recall him being naked.
Oh.
Or maybe just in his undies.
Mike, can you check if he was naked? I can't remember him being naked, and I love to think that Charlie has just added that detail. In Charlie's memory of this, he's declosed him.
Well, I think the idea being
with nothing
it's not a trick. Like you are seeing a guy jumping out.
Yeah,
with,
okay. Well, that makes sense.
Or maybe it's just jocks.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, that is interesting. Like I'm fascinated by that. But yeah, it's got to be led by him, right?
Yeah.
You've got to be like at all stages. He's got to be the one convincing everyone to get involved in it. I would have thought.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
But then you've also got to be like, am I cool with every single person? Like that's a level of trust. Like if I were to put together a crew of people to do that with me, you have to be 100% certain that somebody doesn't have your like. Do you know what I mean?
Issues with you.
Doesn't have like
this motherfucker owes me $120.
You, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, because if you haven't seen it, the way the stunt goes is he jumps out with 2 guys, one with his parachute and the other one as an assistant, and so they free fall for a bit, and then the 2 guys come in and they put the parachute on him and they fasten it, and then he releases the parachute. So I assume that those 2 guys, obviously very experienced, knows them real well, and they would have. Simulated
mate, Gary, I trust Gary with my absolute life. Like, I mean, Gary is so good a guy that even when I'm away, he'll come round, look after my wife. I think this will go perfectly.
So I imagine, it would be no different. Well, it would be a lot different, but I guess the producers of Mission Impossible having the same conversation
with Tom Cruise around with Tom Cruise that he does,
because there was that one.
They have to be led by him. He has to be the one who has to be most passionate about going, I want to get this done. Otherwise, they would.
And he is a producer, so that's how he can get away with it. And there's that
How do you think I go on Gruen if I in this season of Gruen? I just said I want to do my own stunts. I guess I do my own stunts.
Would
Whatever
they?
stunts there might
Okay.
be,
Well,
but
how do you think that would go? Let's say it's not like an elaborate. You want to come in on like a zip line,
yeah.
like you
Like
do
Hugh
you do
Jackman,
yeah
Oprah style.
exactly. You do an
Yeah.
OB for the first episode
Yeah.
of Gruen, where you zip line in from the top of the opera house and land into your seat.
Yeah. We do the final episode of Gruen in the forecourt at the Sydney Opera House, on the stairs of the Opera House, and I zip line in.
Into your seat.
Yeah.
How do you think
Hugh
that
Jackman
conversation?
did that.
Yes,
that's
at
what-
the
yeah,
Oprah
yeah.
thing. Yeah. So we
Fucked
just go, well,
fucked his
Jackman's
eye.
done it.
Yeah. But so who are you talking to? Like,
Yeah.
can you name who the producers are that you'd have to like bring this up with?
Well, so Nick Murray and Polly Connolly are the other two producers of the show. I reckon there'd be probably some people at the ABC we'd have to take it up the line to as well. I can't imagine that's just something we could make.
What
a
do you think
decision.
their initial response will be?
No,
No.
no, too hard, too ambitious.
Okay,
no.
but you've got the money to do it. You've got the resources to do it.
Yeah.
Just say it is like an Oprah style thing where it's like some big, you're getting some big advertising dollars to do it or whatever, or a big guest or whatever. So you want to make it it has to be a spectacular opening to the show. They've been talking about, well, maybe we'll get like Midnight Oil to play the opening or whatever. And you're like, that's great.
Yeah.
And then once they finish, I come zip lining in.
So we have Midnight Oil doing the theme from Gruen.
Like they are sellouts, aren't they?
and then I zip line from the top of the Opera House into the.
Okay.
I like it.
So
You know what?
I'm Nick and Polly, and I say no. That's A. There's too many things that could go wrong. B. We don't know that you're physically capable of doing that, and it's just it's an unnecessary risk.
But that's on me. It's my you know what? This is the final episode. And I think that this is an acceptable risk for the show. I'm doing it for the network. I'm doing it for the show. I'm doing it on behalf of the ABC.
How about we have a stunt man come in, like we shoot it wide angle, so someone dressed like you, looks like you. We shoot you in a close up, saying, "Hey, everybody, welcome to Gruen." Cut to a wide shot stunt man, and then you pop up behind the desk, so it'll still look like you've done it, but it's not you doing it. Would you?
How about you go to Anderson's Road, Dennis, and sneak into my house and hold a pillow over my father's face? How about that?
I'm sorry.
I've escalated it.
Yeah,
quite a lot.
clearly.
This is my tactic.
Patricide? I don't
This is my
understand.
tactic in negotiations.
Okay.
I've gone full
Why don't you
Trump.
kill my
Why don't
father?
you kill my father? Rather than suggest something like that. No, I'm like, it's got to be me. We've got to have it on me. Like our whole show is about legitimacy, about telling people the truth. You can trust us. I have to do it. And I have to prove not just that like I can do it for the show, but that people who are differently abled can do anything. Like,
That's good argument for the ABC.
Right?
Yes.
do you really want to say no? You can't do that because you have a physical.
You start like you're opening X and going,
that is-
the ABC
So
discriminating
you're
against someone
saying
who
that
people with chronic illness.
I can't do things like this. They aren't capable of doing things like that because of their. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, well, we'll compromise. You can come in a zip line, but not from the top of the Opera House. We'll do a shorter one. We'll do like a 20-meter zip line.
Well, why don't you go to my family farm, sneak in, and hold a pillow over my mother's face?
Okay, so Nick or Polly or both of them,
Yeah.
they go, "Will we will walk if you insist on doing this. We're not. There's such a chance of something going wrong. Do you want us to keep working on the show? Because we'll walk if you're going to be that stubborn about this.
Oh, okay, you've probably got me there.
Can't make the show without you.
No, I don't know how any of it works.
Well, I guess that's where like Tom Cruise and you maybe like where you go on different paths here because I believe that Tom Cruise does know how to make a movie.
Yeah, that would be the difference. That's my stumbling block. I don't know how anything works. So, yeah.
I mean, it's funny. Like if you ever watch the original Point Break, the Patrick Swayze Keanu one. So Patrick Swayze is doing all his own skydiving stunts, and there's there's one shot, and it's like it's one take where he's in the plane, he gets up to the door, and he jumps out, and it's actually him. And then I read on IMDb that he actually took skydiving lessons, learned how to do it all, and the studio was happy with one of the stars of their tentpole action movie to do that. Like that would not, apart from Tom Cruise, he would be the only one, or like Jackie Chan or whoever, a stunt trained actor, but there's no way they would let an actor do that these days, would they? It's kind of like the 80s thing, right? Where, you know, in the 80s, you just ride a bike without a helmet.
Yeah.
But now it's like, there's no way. Like, if you were the producers of that film, you're like, oh, yeah, so one of the guys we're paying $5 million to, we're going to let him jump out of an airplane halfway through production. Nothing could go wrong.
Timothy Chalamet says he'll do another Dune, but he wants to go and live on Mars. Yeah, okay. I think that if you were a big enough star, they would think that was a selling point by which they would be able to leverage it. I guess is the if you were a movie, like they get a lot of free publicity out of Tom Cruise doing his own stunts so that they think the risk is worth the reward. There are people going to see those movies because they know that Tom Cruise does his own stunts. It's one of the selling points, right?
Yes.
So if you thought there was something to be leveraged by the fact, and there is in like, to use Keanu as an example, as we always will, which is that, you know, there is something in the, he learned how to fire this gun. He learned how to do these martial arts. That's him in this, that we do admire still. So that is still a form of stunt.
Yes.
Right? Like when we
see
those.
It's literally how Tom Cruise won the public back. It's by, I'm going to try and almost kill myself.
Yes. I mean, it's the SAS Australia principle. Like, we put these people who need to win their way back under extreme circumstances. Is this what, and again, I understand the bad taste aspect of this riff, but is there a path back for cancelled actors through the Tom Cruise approach?
Yeah.
Like by saying, you know, I am willing to up the risk on what it is like that I will
It's
do.
like Kevin Spacey. You want to get back into movies?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, you've got to
jump out of a helicopter with no parachute.
We've cast you as the guy who jumped out of the... Yeah, that's right. And then you see. And if he nails it, we're like, okay, well, you know what? You did it. You took the risk. You're back.
All right, but no guarantees.
But no guarantees.
The public may embrace you for this crazy act, but they may also go, well, that's
and
good,
you
but
also
you're still a
might die.
creep. Yeah.
Like,
hopefully.
That's right. It's kind of a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Like, best case scenario, you die attempting the stunt.
It's like Kevin Hart's like, I sent a tweet 11 years ago that I've apologized for. What the fuck? Best case you die, Kev. And you're definitely not hosting the Oscars.
Depending on the level of the thing that they need to come back from, would be proportionate to the level
danger
of the
stunt. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Woody Allen, you can make a new movie, but this one's got to have stunts.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the idea that, like, you know, I think that could be, I mean, Will Smith, like, particularly in that period post the Oscars, imagine if he'd had to lean into just like doing some,
like, and you could make it sort of like, you know, in the 20s silent movie eras, you had like your Buster Keatons and whatever, and they were doing like super dangerous stunts with no safety.
That's right.
Like going under trains or having like, you know, buildings falling, go through the window. So it's that level.
Yeah.
Will Smith, stand here. We're going to push this flat over. If you are 1 centimeter to the left or the right, you may be crushed.
Yeah.
And that's the best possible scenario. I love it. I mean, I think we could all get behind that.
Yeah.
It's like a path back for cancel actor, depending on, like, you know, the level of what they've done, how horrendous it is. Army Hammer.
But I mean, that's for
Army Hammer. You have to be eaten by cannibals.
Well, Army Hammer. You're in like the next Silence of the Lambs movie, but we've released one real cannibal, or like, you know, in a zombie movie.
You like eating live things? Well, we're going to put you in a cage with a lion.
Oh yeah, okay, right? Yeah. Yes, we're going to make that Siegfried and Roy story, but like with a real lion and no CGI.
Did you see any of that Louis Theroux interview he did with Army Hammer? It's Army, right? Not Arnie. Army.
Yeah.
Wow. That dude is clearly like so defensive over
Army Hammer. Over the eating people thing.
Yeah. Like, it's funny. Like, the whole premise
defensive
of
over like, oh, it was just a joke, I was just riffing, or defensive hey, you know, I respect vegans. Why can't people respect me eating people?
No, it was more. It was this. It felt like the start of an apology tour. Like,
Okay,
okay,
yep.
this is me rehabbing my
Yep.
image. But it was the most. It's the equivalent of, if you were offended by that, then I apologize. Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't, you know what, I said and behaved in a way that was reprehensible. I've gone away. I've really thought about my
Yeah.
actions, and I've realized that I've hurt some people and I mistreated people. He sort of did say I did that, but he also was like, but come on, man. Like,
People are yummy.
what do I have to do? Jump out of a plane with no fucking
Yes,
parachute?
that's what we need
Yes,
you to do.
and that would be the best scenario. It was, but it's funny too that he went on, like, Louis Theroux, who is most probably famous for, like,
Embarrassing people.
well, not, but giving people enough rope. It's like
Yes.
Louis, the
Letting
master.
people embarrass
just
themselves.
talk.
Sorry, yes.
I'll
that's
just
true.
I'll just put I'll let you talk, and I won't say anything, and I'll let you. And that's how the interview. It actually is quite uncomfortable to listen to, because you can hear a guy who is. He had it felt to me like he went into the interview with this idea of, oh, I will be able to rehabilitate my image by saying the right things, mea culpa, but also not backing down.
Yeah.
And I think in that instance that you can't have that last bit. Like, if it's a full mea culpa, it's like, yeah, I was a scumbag. I did horrible things. Like, you've heard public apologies that are exactly that, and people are quite willing to forgive, I think. But it's when there's this, because when you also know who he is, that he comes from that very wealthy family, that he's had this sort of history of avoiding consequences of his actions.
Yes.
And I think that to me felt like the undertone of the interview, which is like, why do I have to pay for this? Like, why do I have to take responsibility for my actions?
And also, he doesn't really need to, other than that he wants public approval again.
Yes.
Because from what I mean, and who knows the realities of what you read, but like you said, he's from a very rich family. It seems like that if he needed to, he could just disappear from the public eye and not be
live a very good life.
Yeah, right? But he doesn't want to do that. He wants to be
famous,
accepted back into the public eye, but without paying for any of the consequences of anything that he's done.
Yeah.
Charlie, he denies the claims, so it'd be weird if he denied the claims and then apologized for doing it.
But he did
in the interview.
No, but he denied the claims, but he did say he mistreated and objectified and treated people like objects. He said, well, I can't remember what the exact quote was. He's like, if I'm guilty of anything, it's been insensitive.
It's loving too much.
Yeah, no, it's been like insensitive.
It's being too good a friend.
Yeah.
Regarding the
it's been too hard a worker.
Theroux asked directly, "Are you a cannibal?" Hammer replied, "You know what you have to do to actually be a cannibal? You have to actually eat human flesh, so no."
Oh, yeah, but I mean, that is a real sort of, that feels like you're very cannibal acting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like saying, oh, well, I've never done a Nazi salute, so I'm not a Nazi.
I cooked someone's leg, but I did not eat it.
Yeah.
Therefore, technically.
Wasn't the claim he ate the entire heart of an animal?
Oh, well, that wouldn't make you a cannibal
I
anyway.
thought
Not an animal.
My understanding of the cannibalism stuff was it was more just kind of like creepy, like sexual innuendo. Like, it wasn't. I
don't think that anyone thought he
it
was an actual cannibal.
No, but I think it was more the
because wouldn't you be in prison if
Yeah,
you're a cannibal?
I think so. But I think it was more the degradation and objectification of the women he was talking to and saying he wanted to consume them and stuff. Like, I think that's kind of
it was just
the
gross,
creepy
and
part.
the cannibal thing is the hook.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
But
So his
I don't
quote,
know.
you're right, Charlie. The quote around that was, "I left a lot of people in that wake very angry at me for my behavior, arsehole behavior. There's no way around that. Does it make me a dick? Absolutely. Like, I have no problem admitting that I was a dick. That's not illegal."
Okay. That's
Okay,
not
so
illegal.
that's like if
There
he
you
just
go.
left it
Yeah.
at dick, he probably would have got
It's
away
not
with
illegal
it.
being a dick, though, is it? It's not against the law, is it?
No, but
To be a
eating
dick.
a dick,
Yeah. Well,
apparently.
I mean, again,
Like
it depends on the
human dick.
context, but
It's a human dick.
No, literally eating a dick. Louis Theroux's like, record.
okay.
This is great.
We haven't started. He goes, oh, I'll do that again. I'll do it again. It's not illegal to eat a dick.
Have you got that James Cameron clip ready to go?
James Cameron,
Yeah, look.
the director of Avatar
director of Avatar and the Terminator movies.
and Avatar 2,
Yes, he was
even more Avatar.
Avatar Boogaloo. No, I can't make that work out. Avatar 2 Electric Blue Aloo? Blue Aloo. I don't know. Anyway, A famed sci-fi director, some would say the father of modern fears about AI and technology. He spoke at some conference on robotics and AI,
Oh, yeah.
and he had this to say. I'm a cannibal. I like to
AGI
eat
will
dick.
not emerge from a government-funded program. It will emerge from one of the tech giants currently funding this multi-billion-dollar research. So then you'll be living in a world that you didn't agree to, didn't vote for, that you are co-inhabiting with a super intelligent alien species that answers to the goals and rules of a corporation, an entity which has access to the comms, beliefs, everything you ever said, and the whereabouts of every person in the country via your personal data. Surveillance capitalism can toggle pretty quickly into digital totalitarianism. At best, these tech giants become the self-appointed arbiters of human good, which is the fox guarding the henhouse. They would never ever think of using that power against us and strip mining us for our last drop of cash. That's a scarier scenario than what I presented in The Terminator 40 years ago, if for no other reason than it's no longer science fiction. It's happening.
Okay, well,
Heartwarming.
I mean, firstly, that sounds like AI. The way that, like, I was like, did he AI his own clip about AI?
The irony.
It's like I just did this on ChatGPT.
Yeah.
But
AIG being artificial, so AGI, artificial
AGI,
general intelligence. Yes.
which is like best kind of more publicly known in these sort of like the chat models that we're seeing online. But all I would say to James Cameron is, welcome to the resistance. It sounds like a TOFOP episode. Feels like he's on they are the fears that I have. Is not that the technology in itself is inherently evil, but that the people who are in charge of the technology are stupid.
That's what we talked about last week. It's like the guys who are championing this and are most bullish about it are the people who will be least affected by the negative consequences of this. At the time of recording this, there was an article in the Good Weekend. Did you read this? Which was all about, I can't remember what the AI is called. It's these two ex-Google employees have created this platform, which is basically relationship AI. So it's AI that you can configure in terms of, do you want like a partner, like a lover? Do you want a psychologist? Do you want someone you can just like joke around with? It's these different models of relationships. The idea being that, as we become more isolated from each other, that you will be able to model a perfect relationship. And so this,
great.
Yeah. Well,
why is the solution to
it's
the
already
problem?
worth $2.5
Why
billion.
is the solution to the problem the thing that created the problem in the first place? Like, can we not get back to the idea that maybe part of the reason that we're experiencing a loneliness epidemic coincides completely with the rise of the iPhone and social media? That maybe we've actually created a problem and we don't need another artificial solution to something that was created by artificiality in the first place?
Well, and that's exactly the point of the article.
Me and
It's
James
like-
Cameron, we're like...
But I guess the question is, because everyone you speak to, it's such a common topic now is AI, and
Of course,
like every industry,
and everything is branded AI, even when it's not AI necessarily.
But it's the genie's out of the bottle. We can't stop it. But how do we mitigate it? Like, it feels almost even too late to legislate against it, right? Like it's too late.
That's always great. Too late to legislate. Fuck, great.
No, we need AI to write the legislation.
Yeah, well, that's right. They'll write it. We won't understand it. They'll implement it. AIs will just talk to other AIs.
Yeah, I mean, my brother, who's a teacher, he was at a conference with the students, and one of his students' fathers works for Macquarie Bank in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
And my brother was like, "What's the big threat at the moment?" And he said, "Oh, it's 100% AI deep fakes,
Yes.
like a voice mimicry, all that kind of stuff. Getting phone calls. Bank requires like some information from you." And he said it's just moving so fast and it's getting so sophisticated. It's almost extrapolating at a rate that the cybersecurity can't keep up with. To the point that my brother then had to transfer a large amount of money to his bank because he just bought a property, and he was like, He said he was paralyzed. He's like, should I
Just
hit send
terrified.
on this?
Terrified to be able
Like, how
to
do I know
it.
it's going to
Yes.
where it's going? Like,
And there seems to be no recompense for
no,
people
fuck you.
who are
Bad luck.
Yeah, that's
Identity theft is apparently the worst thing that can happen to you.
Yeah.
You will get harassed and chased for that money. And it's just like, what are you meant to do?
for so long. It's very hard to prove that it wasn't you. It's incredibly easy to use your details and replicate them. And yeah, I mean, it's an
Yeah.
absolute nightmare.
And so, like, what's the great reset? Can we put the brakes on? Like,
Pull the plug,
but how?
literally. Unplug it all.
So we've joked about this before, where we have to go back to a pre-industrialization era, right? Like, I mean, that same journalist was talking to last week about, hanging out with the Silicon Valley guys, and he was saying the dumbest thing that, the dumbest messaging that ever was put out there was learn to code. He's like Meta have already sacked all their coders.
Yes.
They don't need coders
Because,
anymore.
yes, coding.
What we should have been saying to people is learn to farm. He said that's what will bring you the most value in the next 20 to 30 years, is knowing how to look after yourself.
It is one of those jobs that immediately got replaced. The coding and the fact that the AI is doing the coding is one of those things that sounds terrifying. It sounds like, why did nobody at the time go, is this a good idea?
Yeah. Why did nobody say, is this a good idea?
Because some people did say, this isn't a good idea. But then some other people went, this is a great idea, and started making heaps of money. So then everyone was like, you know what? Actually, maybe it's a great idea because I don't want to miss out on this money. And now now everyone's invested too much money in it for it to actually fail. It's like crypto. Like the idea that crypto is now just so established that it kind of has to work, at least in some form, just because so many people have got so much on the line now. They just willed a dumb thing into existence. And it feels like we're about to will another dumb thing into existence.
So you said that Adam Spence
Yeah.
he's one of the guys who's kind of
He's
optimistic
well, I
about
think,
it.
I don't want to misrepresent him, but he is much more optimistic, and particularly about the implications, the positive implications that can have and I have read a lot about like curing diseases, testing medicines, all those sort of things. There is like obviously huge advantages of them being able to run these, programs and these hypotheses, and then you can test like. You can test 1,000 of them in the time it'd normally take you to test one, and then go, of these, 73 showed, and then you can actually just go, right, we can practically test, that sort of stuff. You go, okay, well, that seems amazing, and diseases might be cured by that, which is incredible.
It's what,
Yes.
it extends beyond that to it's like, crop production, how do we maximize crop yields, anticipating weather, anticipating natural disasters, all this kind of stuff, which all sounds great.
Yes.
But where's the profit motive, Will?
Right. That's the problem, right? Because every time one of these things has come along, and this is just my problem with the people who are in charge of it. Because if you look at social media now, I was listening to Jimmy Pardo's podcast, as I regularly do, Never Not Funny, and they were on that talking about the idea of if Facebook offered a option to go to Facebook, and it was the original Facebook that we all liked, which was just a way to keep in contact with your friends and what they were up to in a way that you just kind of like, and it cost $5 a month, but it was only that version. You didn't get any of the, once you clicked on a video, you got suggested things. You didn't get any of that. It's just literally what it was. There would probably be quite a huge audience for that, because that version of it was great. It was fun to kind of have this like network that was with your friends and whatever, and it just grew. But then they had to be like, how do we monetize this thing? How do we add ads? How do we manipulate people? And I've been reading this book about like an ex-employee of like Facebook and all the stuff that they went on it. And it's just, I mean, of course, how many times does a movie or a book or a documentary or a newspaper article have to come out about like the people behind these companies that says, oh, by the way, they're terrible. Everything about this company is awful. It was started in an awful way. It continues to be awful. And the history of every one of those companies has been, even the ones that started
with the best
good,
intentions,
like Google.
Yeah,
And
don't be evil.
don't
And
be
they,
evil.
then
And
they,
they're like,
they scrape that off.
Let's just get rid of the don't.
Yeah.
Because that's a much better business
Or even
model.
B, just
Yeah,
evil.
yeah,
Just make it
evil
like
or
a
don't.
categorical
Yeah.
statement.
And take out the I. We'll make it cool.
Don't be evil.
Yeah, evil.
Who's
Don't
evil?
be evil.
This is CEO, Evil. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it gets so overwhelming, and I talk to Jem about it a lot because she thinks I'm like too pessimistic, or I'm a doomsday guy or whatever. Because I get so like anxious about this stuff, and she's like, you can't affect any of this. Like you are getting sucked into these things which are so much bigger. But
Well, I think both of those things can be true at the same time, which is that you can be right about your fears, but she can be right about your
can't do
capacity
anything.
to impact.
So, but what is the right approach then? Like, should you be cognizant of what's going on, knowing that you can't affect it? Or is that just going to make my life miserable? Or do you have to become like a super activist about it and like try and blow up Skynet? Like, what is the correct response here?
I
Like,
mean, the correct response is blow up Skynet and, like blow up pipelines to oil, to do all that. The civil disobedience that people on the edges of the climate change, like protests and the edges of the AI protests are doing. Of course, that is if you believe that to be true. But that's impractical, but for a very select group of people in the world. You have like a family and a life and other responsibilities. You can't just go and like
blow up a pipeline.
no. It's just, if you
I
ask,
get the feeling
if
this
you're like-
episode might get flagged.
I was-
I don't know. Like,
was
do we?
No, I was like, what I mean by AI.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
We'll go on a list that we were already on. They'll be like, they're at it again. But I mean, it's not practical for you to be able to do those things in your life, right?
Yeah.
You've got to act local and think global. I mean, I know it's such a cliche thing, but I think it is the only thing that we can control is our own actions and our own worlds, really, and then think about the global implications of things as well. But I think in a control sense, for you to be able to not let it overwhelm your life by things that are beyond your control. You cannot personally fix climate change. You cannot personally, stop an AI war or a war but you can be empathetic to people who are in those situations or support people who do have power for that, or like not stand in the way of people who are trying to make things better, at a bare minimum, or engage in the process, or understand why other people are doing the hard work on behalf of us, and all those things I think you can do.
I wonder if there's like if it's possible to measure like when was the most, and it would be sort of skewed by what part of the world you live in, but was there a time that was the most peaceful when there was the most amount of prosperity on average worldwide with the least amount of conflict? I wonder if there is an agreed upon time. It tends to be very West biased when that stuff is discussed.
I absolutely agree with that, but I think it might have been quite recently.
Right.
I think generally what normally happens is they say these are the best of times, even if it feels like. But of course, there is that. What's the doomsday clock?
Yeah.
And they keep nudging that closer to doomsday. That doesn't seem to be going further away from doomsday at any stage.
Yeah.
So I guess there's that. I know there's a lot more wars at the moment than there has been. So I think, like, if you were going to look at like how peaceful or otherwise the world is now, would not be the perfect time to stick your temperature device into it to see how we're going. But Mike, did you find any information? Did AI manage to find anything online?
The most peaceful time is coming soon. You just need to give over to your
Get rid
AI
of the
overlords.
humans.
I asked AI how to deal with anxiety around AI. It gave me a 3-step plan. Do you want?
Oh yeah, that's good. Let's hear it.
Step 1: understand the reality. AI isn't magic or an immediate threat. Thanks, AI. Learn how it works.
Threat. You know what though? An immediate threat worries me even more because it's like we will be a threat, just not right now.
Yeah, AI, and being a threat's not illegal. All right, Army I. Is that what it stands for?
Yeah. Adapt and learn. Instead of fearing AI, figure out how to use it to your advantage, whether for work, creativity, or daily life.
Yeah. Instead of fearing guns, buy a gun and learn how to use a gun. Yeah.
Step 3, support ethical AI. Do you support ethical AI, Charlie?
I do.
Yeah,
ethical AI.
Sure, but what does that mean? I don't understand. Is there...
Well, it means maybe don't steal from like artists to train your AI programs and maybe give them some money for all the stuff that you've taken.
Like
to
Meta
use for
has
your
apparently already like illegally like scanned 160 million books or something like that. They've literally just kind of fed all this data from 160 million different authors and books to like, and they're right. And
Yes.
it's like no one's stopping them.
Are you talking about Meta?
Yeah.
Facebook?
Yes.
The company that was started as the Facebook to rate hot women on campus that have consistently exaggerated figures throughout their life have recently, in this book I've been reading, Charlie,
Is this the one written by that journalist, the female journalist?
she was an Facebook
Yes.
employee.
Yeah, I
but
saw
they've
her on the
tried to
Daily Show.
and
yeah.
they've tried to shut the whole thing down. They've
Right.
come with lawyers. It's a whole big thing. It's great. The book is great, but they were offering to
What's the book called? Can you remember?
The Careless Company or something like that.
Right.
Mike, maybe you could look it up. They've had to kind
Not
of
a great title.
well,
AI could have come up with a
they've
better
had
one.
to call it. She had to call it something so they didn't have Facebook in
Okay,
there.
right.
Like there had to be. That was part of, I think, what was going. Anyway, so it was
Careless
they
people.
were careless people. So they were offering. So they know, for example, when a young woman, if she deletes a selfie from Instagram, that she's probably in an emotionally vulnerable place about the fact that she, they know from studies that that's normally to do with body image. They've looked at one of their selfies and decided that, and they offered like
Diet pills or something.
the opportunity to feed your ad about whatever it is that you want to feed to these young girls at their most vulnerable. But there's examples of that all over the place, but that's just one of the most egregious ones that puts you. These are terrible companies who are constantly manipulating people on levels that we don't understand for their own reasons. And we're going to let them be in charge of the next generation of stuff as well and become say what you want about Trump and you can, but at least he was elected. You know what I mean? At least
There's a democratic process.
Yeah,
that took
whereas there was
place.
no democratic process for Musk or for Trump or any
Mm.
of these ones that are associated, for Facebook, for Zuckerberg or for Musk, and yeah, that's what terrifies me is that the people who are going to be most in charge of these things are these terrible companies with terrible motivations and not good ethical decision making processes.
Well, it's also weird too. Like everything that I've read about billionaires or people who have had dealings with billionaires is they talk about like something changes in the brain chemistry.
Of course it does, because you don't have to live in the real world anymore. Because you have billions of dollars. And we have a society set up to tell you that if you've made billions of dollars, you're smarter than everybody else and you know everything.
I watched that Netflix documentary on Brian Johnson. You know, the guy who's trying to
Live forever or
live
whatever.
forever. Yeah.
The guy who
And-
measures his penis every night.
Yeah, amongst other things.
Yeah.
Like it's interesting too because this is clearly a bit of puff piece marketing. They're trying
Yes.
to kind of rehabilitate his image a bit. But his whole like background of I think he started a company, Braintree, which then acquired Venmo. So he got very rich quite early on, but was out of shape and Mormon. He's a Mormon. He had 3 kids, was part of the Mormon church, then had this kind of breakdown and left the church. His wife did forbid his kids from seeing him, and he was sort of like just lost. And that's when he sort of got into this idea of like, how if I follow the science of like how to treat my body, like can I get to the absolute, like the perfect balance of sort of fat to muscle mass plus these supplements. And he talks
What if I left one cult and went immediately into a new
right.
cult?
So that's what I was going to say. So he does this thing where he talks about, he doesn't blame people he says humans shouldn't blame themselves for their failings, their frailties. If they're smoking, drinking, eating bad food, it's impossible. Like, you've got social media feeding you stuff. We're constantly being bombarded by stuff that is impossible for our lizard brain.
I do agree with that.
Yes. So he was saying, and he was the same, and he said this experiment, and he's clearly, I think he's on the spectrum or something, because the way his mind works is his decision was, my brain is controlling my life and it's making me miserable. It's giving me anxiety, depression, all this kind of stuff. So he's designed an algorithm based on this scientific data about this is what your heart needs, because he's saying like your different organs need different nutrients, different nourishment, water, supplements, all this kind of stuff. I am outsourced. Rather than my brain telling me what my body needs, I'm going to let the data tell me what my body needs and cut my brain out of the process. So he's literally outsourced his thinking to an algorithm because he says it just makes him happier because he's not bothered by, oh God, like, do I look good? Do I look bad? But the one thing and there's all these criteria amongst his health regime. One of them is like social interaction. And of course, when you're someone who goes to bed at 8:30 every night and wakes up at 4:30 a.m., does an hour workout, takes 80 supplements a day, blah, 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 like it's very hard to have any kind of personal relationship. He has a very close relationship with his son, but his son, because his son left the church as well, came to live with his dad, but then was going to college. And so he was alone again.
But what wasn't at some stage, wasn't he also taking like
Heaps of like crazy, like going to Panama to get like gene therapy.
But wasn't he getting something
foliates,
from his son as well,
blood.
like blood from his son?
blood platelets? Yeah. Not just his son, like anyone.
Yeah, but I mean,
Because they talk about it's. I mean, they intersperse the documentary with interviews with people who work in aging, I guess, and how to sort of like slow down the effects of aging. The idea is he wants to, they say the capacity for human beings at this stage, with what we know, is probably to get to 200 of like living quality life. Well, living. I don't know if it's a quality of life, but he could not form any kind of social relationships. It's impossible when you're following. He's got like employees and stuff like that he has for like, but it's not the same. But then by the end of it, because he goes on social media, he starts documenting this journey, and there's so many people who are looking for something in this frightening world we live in, that he now has like a cult, and it's literally, and he sort of jokes, "Oh, yeah, I'm a cult leader," or whatever. It's like, no, you are.
it's like, I was in a cult, but now I'm a cult leader.
You are, yeah, you're a cult leader, and it's so interesting. And the
Not
people
illegal.
who are,
It's not illegal.
It's not illegal.
Not illegal to
illegal.
start a cult.
Certainly not illegal, but it just he sort of tries to frame it as like the project was called "Don't Die," and then it's like, oh, I've changed my mind about that. Now it's not about not dying; it's about living to my fullest capacity.
Die another day.
Yes, but it's not about that. What it's really about is everyone. There's this existential dread we all have about, we're going to die. We might die tomorrow. We might die in 20 years' time, but then it's all over. And none of this shit, like whether or not you're doing what he's doing and, taking all the supplements, or you're just living a regular life, like it doesn't change anything. Like it won't, the world's not going to change. Humanity's not going to change. Like there are no breakthroughs. You are trying to leave your mark on the world, which you'll be forgotten in 100 years. There's very few people who are remembered beyond their death.
I mean, barely anyone. Like percentage.
You have to do something really horrible.
Really horrible or really great. And mostly horrible, because
Mostly
it's
horrible.
easier to do something really horrible. But like, what percentage of people do you think are remembered more than 100 years after than they? And particularly,
like less than like 0.001%, maybe.
and I would have said that even in previous generations, the ones who are remembered because of scarcity of records, right?
Yep.
I'm sure
Religious figures, warlords.
I'm sure of
royalty.
those times there was a heap of other people as well, but because there was only a certain amount of stories that were passed down, there, like you feel like maybe like Jesus was, maybe Jesus was like more like an ensemble member if you actually were there at the time, but like over history, like has become the lead character in all these stories because that's the story that gets told the most, right?
Yeah.
We don't know, but with the modern generation, because everything is being recorded. And everybody is like, and we don't even have that shared sense of we're all watching the same TV show or watching the same. So what is even the idea of being remembered? I mean, it was always ridiculous anyway, but by who?
Yeah.
What value does it even have?
Yeah.
So that's the interesting thing to me, which is that we now have an economy that is basically so driven by like attention, right? Like attention being this big resource in the world now is like people's attention. It's like, but what is the value of attention? If we can all live forever, but none of us can live forever, then
What's the point?
what's the point of any
Well,
of that?
I think it is that thing of distracting
Anyway,
ourselves.
this is the end of the podcast.
it's distracting ourselves about our impending doom. Like that's
Yeah,
all.
okay.
I think.
Distracting ourselves to death though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's all about distraction. And speaking of that, Will, it's time for.
Just while I pull that up,
Yeah.
Is it weird to measure your dick every day?
It's not illegal.
It's not illegal. It is not illegal.
Crack that pack. We've been very Arnott's heavy lately. Don't worry.
Not a sponsor.
I've got some new biscuits coming up in the next couple of weeks. But I was fascinated when I saw the Malto milk because a couple of weeks ago we did Biscoff. And I was like, oh, what's the flavor of Biscoff? And you're like, oh, it's malt. And I remember my most loathed biscuit from the Arnott's Family Assorted was the Malto milk.
I didn't even know that the Malto milk was still being
Well, neither did I.
produced.
That's why I thought.
Do you think it's back because of Biscoff, the Malto milk?
I don't know. Okay, so the description is classic biscuit, the divine malted milk flavor, perfect with a cuppa.
Divine?
Or a
did we
glass
say?
of milk.
Yes. Okay, a glass of milk because we live in 1920.
And you're Captain America.
Okay. Right.
So, yeah, I used to hate the Malto milk. It would stay right at the bottom of
And
the
you
jar
wouldn't have
when I was
had a
kid.
Malto milk since you were a kid then probably,
30,
right?
30 plus years.
30 plus years.
What's your
Yeah,
impressions of the
same.
Malto?
I reckon same. I wouldn't have had a Malto in 30 plus.
Was it ever a go-to?
I don't think so.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
I
no,
mean, we
you-
literally have cracked this pack.
Because
this
there's
is
no pack.
This is what I think about Arnott's. They don't
No.
even care about the Malto milk because there's no plastic
There's no pack.
container.
No,
it's just in the
literally just the
wrapper.
biscuits in the wrapper.
and they're all
That's it.
broken and shit. So
Yeah.
Will's going to
All
take a
right,
bite.
I'm going to go first.
One thing I will say about the Malto milk in terms of design, I do like the classic design. It's kind of, you got the patterned surface with the kind of wave effect. It's very old school. And even looking at it now, I'm like, I can see the Biscoff sort of comparisons because it sort of has that sort of same shape. But I'm not looking forward to this. And I'm going to take my bite while Will gives you his impressions.
My impression is that it's not very malty. It's a little malty, but it's not particularly heavy on the malt. It just kind of tastes like a plain biscuit, is really what I would say. It doesn't go anywhere. Like where you start is where it finishes, and it doesn't have a particularly good
Not as
aftertaste.
bad as I remember.
Yeah, wait. I reckon you will.
Okay.
I reckon the aftertaste isn't as pleasant. The actual biscuit itself, it's crunchy. I like that.
Not as good as a Biscoff. Like,
Oh, not
this
even.
is like the
Oh, man.
fucking NQR Biscoff.
This is your mum knitting you a footy jumper.
And that must be infuriating because Biscoff, I feel, is like is Johnny Come Lately, and the Malto Milk's an OG. But yeah, I don't hate it. I don't.
It just kind of tastes like a
it's
tiny.
a C.
It tastes like any of the other Arnott's biscuits, like a tiny teddy or like any.
This
like,
would be great crumbled over some dessert or used as a foundation of something else.
Yeah. Oh, you mean like Biscoff?
Yeah. Crush them up, turn them into Biscoff.
Yeah.
So this is an easy judge. Yep. I'm going to give it a C. Not terrible. I got a bit of nostalgia for it, so I'm going to give it a solid C.
Yeah, I reckon a C as well.
Yeah.
But I reckon that's pretty good.
I don't think I
didn't think it was going to get a C, so I think a C is pretty
I
good.
do not think it's the best. Their claims about a perfect with a cup or a glass of milk.
Nah, maybe with a coffee. I reckon it could be like it could be a coffee,
like a Biscoff.
like a biscuit. I'd rather have a biscuit.
I'd rather have a Biscoff. Let's be honest. Once
What
again,
year was Charlie? What year was the Malto milk invented? Do you think?
Oh yeah.
it seems like a World War II biscuit. I can imagine, like the Anzacs cracking open their backpacks and having one. 1938.
Will, what's your guess?
Oh, well, maybe later than that. Maybe 1950 something.
1924.
Ooh, that's an old
Biscoff.
biscuit.
Biscoff, 1938.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Oh.
All right. So you were right.
I was
the Malto
right.
milk.
Yeah,
Yeah, it does feel a bit wartime rations.
it does. Like, I think of my dad. I'm sure my
Yeah.
dad loved a Malto milk. Maybe some tray drippings or something.
I mean,
Something gross like that your parents would eat. Did your parents ever have drippings?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so
Bread and
fucking gross.
drippings.
Oh,
and then
they would talk it
and
up.
then a Malto milk.
Did your parents ever say to you, when I was a kid, fruit was like a lolly.
Yeah.
Fruit was sweets. It's like, fuck off. We've got jelly snakes now. I don't need an apple.
We'd have a delicious Malto milk, one with a cuppa.
A month. And that was it. Like, at Christmas time, we'd all get a Malto milk and an apple. And we're happy with that. Everyone, if you like this show,
Yes,
but you want to hear it without ads and you want to get a bit earlier,
yes.
sign up to our Patreon, patreon.com/everyonerelax. Not only are you getting early ad-free episodes, heaps of bonus content, and an archive that literally goes back years. So if you're new to the show, you've got so much great stuff in there, including full videos of TOFOP and Two Guys, One Cup.
I'm on tour, comedy.com.au. I've got a whole bunch of both my improvised show and last year's show, Will Legitimate. So check out comedy.com.au for all those details.
I feel bad. We have a full pack of Malto milks, and
Yeah.
I reckon these are going straight in the bin.
No, they'll go in the kitchen here at the
Oh, will
radio
they?
station.
Will they eat 'em
Yeah,
here?
I reckon put them in the kitchen. I think people will eat them.
We'll check in
milk.
when we come back to do
Yeah.
our next record. We'll check if anyone's
Yeah.
eaten them. So I
Last
guarantee.
match to the tech guys. They love this segment.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Will Anderson.
You must die.